Welcome to the Monday Minute of the Hunt Backcountry Podcast. These are shorter and more informal episodes where we answer listener questions. Steve, unlike last time, we are back at it. We are not in a hotel room. We're back to kind of business as usual after Sheep Show and Shot Show.
Yeah, yeah, nice to be fun to go do those, but nice to be home with the family, that's for sure.
Well, we will touch a little bit on some things we saw at those shows. We've had people reach out, kind of want to hear more about it. So we'll talk about that in a minute. First, just a few things to mention. One, we are back to releasing episodes of the Experience Project. So last night we released episode 5, which is the first episode of the Moose Hunts. I'll leave a link for that in the show description. And really, the goal is between now and hopefully Hunt Expo and the Pacific Northwest Sportsman Show, which are both mid-February. We'll try and get all the episodes out. So the rest of the moose hunts and then on into the mountain goat hunt. So again, episode 5's out. You can see the start of the moose hunts and then more to come. So if you haven't yet, hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. That'd be super helpful and make sure that you guys see those next episodes. Steve, I'm excited to see moose. Like I've said this before, but since it was the hunt of the series that I wasn't on, I get to sit back as a viewer and kind of see some of what went down with some of the stories that I've heard. So I'm looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, it's so it was unfortunate that all the more heart-thumping bear encounters were like none of them were only one of them I can remember was really on camera because the other time it was like, Justin was going for his pistol and not grabbing the camera off his chest. Um, but you still see like the amount of bears in there, like even in that first episode, just they're just all around us. It was crazy. But, and oddly enough, everybody who said never again, like, well, Tyler didn't, but Dan and Justin were like, I don't ever want to do that. After like watching the rough drafts of the videos, everyone's like, "Are we going back?" I was like, "What?"
Uh,
But yeah, we're sick and twisted, I guess. A lot of
yeah,
individuals want to go back through that again.
that's funny. Um, Another kind of timely thing is Gabriel over at Ivory Holsters has a limited run of Exo like branded holsters. If you're not aware of who Gabriel is or what Ivory is, he makes the best pack holster for pistols that work on our packs. And I think going back to 2018, I think is when we first started talking with Gabriel. He was making holsters as a side hobby out of his garage. We had gotten in contact with him, basically said, "Hey, we have some ideas for how holsters could be improved for pack use." He ended up, making prototypes for us. We refined some things, and then he launched the EMG pack holster. Has been making it ever since. And man, I don't know how many Exo customers use those holsters. We have no incentive financially or partnership with Gabriel or anything, but he's just a an amazing human being, makes an amazing holster, and right now he has some that are Exo branded, which is cool. And he does those in limited runs, not too frequently. So if that's something that interests you, go check it out. There's a link again in this show description. I think he only has 100 of those total available, the Exo branded ones. So if that interests you, go check that out. We wanted to make sure you guys knew about it. Cody sent in this email and wrote, he said, Spotify is by far the easiest platform for me to listen, but I can only go back to episode number 217, and I'm looking to pull some older podcasts. I remember you saying you were using a new platform to put the podcast out, and I was wondering if that affected things and if that was why I can only go back to episode 217. That's a great question from Cody. And a few things I just want to mention from that. Yes, there is an episode limit when we migrated platforms. It's only pulling in the latest 500 episodes, which is a lot of episodes, but is only roughly half of the number of episodes out there. So if you are on Spotify, and this does affect other podcast platforms, like including Apple and others, and you're really looking to go back into the archives, you won't be able to see them there. We are working on trying to get the old episodes out there, but the best way to go see everything and go through the back catalog is to go to our website, go to exomountgear.com/podcast. Everything is there all the way back to episode one. And what's cool is when you're on that page, you can also search by keyword or guest or even filter by things like topic. So that is the best way to go see the back catalog. And then I also just want to mention, like Cody said, Spotify is by far the easiest platform. We've seen a ton of growth with Spotify for the podcast. That's where a lot of people are listening to it. And we did just want to say it's a cool platform for us putting out the podcast because it makes it easy for you guys to also leave comments that we can see or ask questions like directly in that app that we can see. Um, we obviously encourage you guys to share feedback and send us emails. That's perfectly fine. Great. Keep doing that. But just want to let you know Spotify is so far a great platform. I know you use it, Steve. I use it, Steve. I use it as well to listen to my podcasts. So it's a good one to check out if you guys haven't yet. And the comments that you can leave within the app are visible to us and we get notified. So just keep that in mind if you guys are, maybe trying a new Spotify or trying a new podcast app or looking for one to maybe check out Spotify.
Yeah, I like the fact that you can comment in there. That's gives people the ability to, quickly, easily ask a question and get an answer to it.
Well, Steve, we've gotten a lot of different questions from SHOT Show. We'll start with the generic question. People just wanted to know, like, what did you see? What did you experience? How was it, etc. That's tough to answer in part because SHOT Show is so stinking big. We can't see it all, and we also can't necessarily like if you spend a lot of time at any single place, you're further limiting your ability to go see other things. So let me say we are not covering it all. We did not see it all. And we're not trying to provide the most, conclusive recap of SHOT Show by any means. I just wanted, since people were asking, to touch on specific things that you and I saw interesting. And I'm sure there's a lot of things interesting to other people that also wasn't interesting to you or I. So, um, yeah, let's just kind of do maybe a quick rundown of some of the stuff that stood out to us. I'll let you kick it off.
Oh, dude, like you don't want my response because it's pretty boring. The coolest thing I saw was the rechargeable batteries, um, which sounds crazy. But no, I'm just not a. Obviously, I rifle hunt. We've gotten into rifles, but I am not a. The SHOT Show has turned into. It used to be. I don't know the original acronym perfectly, but it should be shooting. H is for hunting, and while there is some hunting there, it's a tactical show. I mean, 99.9% of it's tactical, military tactical stuff like that. And so that's all over my head. I mean, there's like 1 million pistols out there and things like that. Stuff that just is not interesting to me as a lightweight backcountry hunter. And
Yeah.
it's some of it's there, but it's so there's so much there that it's like you're talking 0.001% of the show. But yeah, Coast randomly they have some just rechargeable. We've been using these. I think the first one I saw was from you with the Phoenix headlamp there. It's got that, what is it called? A CR123 battery.
Yeah.
Is that the size of it? I can't remember.
I think so.
But they basically have built-in USB-C plug, right? It's like built into the battery. There's no extra device needed. It's simply you got your battery bank and a USB-C cable. You plug it right into the battery. And then I saw where that original battery from Phoenix is like a 750 milliamps, which is basically the amount of energy that's being stored in the battery. And then Nightcore had one that was 950 milliamps. So I was like, oh man, that's great. It's a good increase in available energy in the battery, which haven't tested this, which I want to, but that should translate into longer headlamp life, right? You're gonna be able to run that longer. And then Coast had the exact same size, and somehow they got 1150 milliamps out of that thing. So pretty pretty freaking cool. And then they have it all. They have every battery you could buy, like double A's and triple A's and C's and D's, and um, all of them with this USB-C built in. It's pretty cool. Like if you were to just go, I mean, it's expensive, but if you just went and bought, you know, 20 AAA batteries with that charger on it, like for your household, you'd never have to buy batteries again in your lifetime, I think. Other than that, somebody said something about Manners having a folding stock. I'm like, oh, that's cool. So somebody sent it to you. We stopped by and looked at that. Um, my opinion, there was a lot more chassis and folding stock options. Nobody has done it better than MDT with that Hunt 26 chassis that I have, in my opinion. For my specific, I want a folding chassis. I want it as lightweight as possible. I want a Arca rail built into it. Like all the boxes that I want to tick, the MDT has done it, except for it needs to fold in the other direction for simply because of mounting to a pack is a lot easier that way. Um, but I haven't seen anything that's, probably the Seek and Slam chassis. What's the new version of that called?
Oh, I knew you were gonna ask that. I don't
Uh,
remember, to be honest with
okay.
you.
Seek, yeah, same exact stock chassis system, but a different rifle name. I mean, they did a good job with it. I mean, I'm sure somebody thinks it's the most amazing thing in the world. I said, just for me, it's like super lightweight, Arca rail built in, folds, ideally folds towards the bolt side. Um, that's a pretty low list of things, but just nobody's done it um,
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah, the MDT for me is as close as it can be.
Yeah, the going back on the battery real quick, it's a 16340 for the Phoenix headlamp that we were talking about. The
Wow.
CR123 is like the rangefinder type battery. Um, but yeah, USB-C from Coast on AAA, AA, all the things, which was good to see. That is funny how such a like you're in SHOT Show and these companies spending millions of dollars and have these massive product announcements, and you and I were pretty excited to see those little batteries.
Well,
That's funny.
I mean, it's a very practical thing that's solving a problem that we've had as far as back. I mean, you have to pack extra batteries, and do you have, how do you charge those? Or, traditionally I've just always had, I go buy a 20 pack of AAAs from Costco or something like that every year. And, I'm always cycling through AAAs, right? You put them in the headlamp, and then you got three extras in the stash pocket in the pack. And you're just always like, oh, did I use these ones? Are these ones charged or not? And have these been used at all? Uh, and you just solve that problem. And they've got higher capacities, which is it's like a win-win-win.
Yeah, the jumping back as well to that Manners folding chassis. I know we'll get more questions on that. I did speak with them a little bit. The weight, they're basically the ones that they had in the booth, which are not final production, but were pretty well along, it seemed like. We're right at about 32 ounces. That was with the fixed comb. They are hoping to have an version with an adjustable comb, cheek riser height. That mechanism would obviously add even more weight. It did fold to the bolt side, and it didn't fully capture the bolt, but essentially the bolt was recessed in an area where the stock folded, which was kind of cool to see. One thing they said they're adding to production but didn't have on the stocks in the booth was there's no mechanical lock when the stock is folded, but they were adding magnets that were recessed, so they should be non-visible magnets to try and keep that buttstock in position. But they definitely talked about not wanting to add a mechanical lock and slow the process down of deploying the rifle from a folded to an extended position. And then I also asked, since I'm left-handed, what their plans were there, and they basically said, hopefully eventually, but it's like they were in any rush to try and do a left-handed version, just based on one, figuring out the actual production, of this stock and launching it, and then seeing what demand looks like. So that's a rundown on some of the details there. And then I did look up, Steve, that Seekins. It's the Element Hunter is the rifle that they have with the chassis. So essentially an all new rifle model for 2025. I don't think that they have current plans to sell just the chassis. But this Element Hunter rifles, they have it at $3,200 MSRP. Um, Looking at it, it's in six Creedmoor, six and a half or 6.5 Creedmoor, 6.5 PRC, and a few others. They have a long action version that's going to be seven PRC, seven Rim Mag, 300 Win Mag, 300 PRC. Oh, and another thing from Shot Steve, the seven Backcountry. Another new cartridge to hit the market, which is always interesting to see. Um, there's I don't want to say a lot of buzz about it, but definitely companies talking it up. It's a new cartridge released by Federal, using like a steel case, so a non-brass case, getting higher pressures, more speed. So essentially a extended hot rod 7 Magnum, which I kind of shake my head at and think we don't need in the market. But companies were building rifles for it, so we'll see how that thing lasts. But yeah, that's a quick rundown on the Seekins Element Hunter. I can leave a link to that. It was cool to put hands on that rifle. It looks like a lot of rifle for $3,200. That's of course
Hmm.
still a lot of money, but when you start looking at building stuff, it's easy to build a lightweight rifle in a chassis and spend more than that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
What about the fishnets, Steve? I have a picture of you with a big smile on your face standing next to a
Oh,
mannequin in fishnets.
we were, yeah, downstairs, and I didn't take a picture of the cards in my office. Yeah, there was a
Yeah.
company that was they doing a,
Defend, I think. DFND,
yeah,
Defend
that's right.
USA.
Yep, yep. But that was, I talked with a guy, the vice president. I can't remember his name. I remember that part. Um, they're just doing like military contracts, and he said if there's like old, somebody orders 1,000 units, they're going to produce 1,020, and if those 20 left over end up on the website for sale at some point. But they had some pretty good looking mesh fishnet stuff that similar to the Brenier long johns that I use that looked really cool. I definitely would like to get my hands on a set eventually. But he just said you got to just check the website every 3 months and see if something happens to be there.
That's interesting. I mean, it's cool to see any apparel made in the USA because that's a tough market.
Mhm.
But it sounds like obviously for this availability is going to be super limited because they're just focused on military contracts. But always
Yeah,
cool to hear
yeah.
of a new brand doing something.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it was all merino wool. It looked really nice and definitely a little bit heavier weight, so better for colder weather than the Brenier stuff. But um, I keep hoping to see a rifle scope, and I believe that Night Force NXS I'm using now is a 20-year-old scope as far as when they started coming out with them. Something like that. It's old. And I mean, there's literally nothing on that entire SHOT Show floor that, in my opinion, competes with that thing as far as performance features, durability being number one,
Hmm.
which is crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've we know some guys at Night Force. We've told them what we want. They tell us they're listening to that, but they also won't tell us anything of the future. So
Mhm.
it would be cool to see some updated scopes. There are a lot of updated scopes. For me, there's nothing that checks all of the boxes. There's a lot of stuff that comes close, but I agree, at least for my needs, unless we're unicorns, Steve. The perfect option isn't out there yet. And it's also interesting to see just the direction that some companies are taking scopes. I was in the Burris booth, Burris and Steiner, and they had a new scope, and they're just really focusing on increasing technology. And they had a rifle scope that the turrets were completely non-mechanical. So the turrets were only digital. And basically, this scope is, a variant of a quote unquote smart scope, and the scope has a ballistic profile in it. And so it is taking your ballistics or your ballistic profile, and the turret again is non-mechanical. So you're not cutting a turret, you're not matching MOA or mills to your ballistics. It is literally you can free spin this turret, and as you're looking inside the rifle scope, there's a digital display in your view, and as you turn the dial, you're just changing from, you just watch it go like 302 yards, 303 yards, 304, and you can just dial that thing from zero to, I don't know what the capacity was. The demo I was playing with was 500 something yards, but it was a weird feeling to spin a turret. There's no clicks. It's all digital. You're free spinning it, and then you have a display inside your scope that's just tied to your ballistic profile and
How do you
showing you yardage.
sight that in? You still have to physically move the scope left and right, up and down to get your zero. Like I understand once that's
Yeah.
established, the red dot's moving up and down or possibly left and right with your windage, but I mean, you got to get to where that is in the middle of the housing. Or maybe you don't. Maybe it's,
Yeah, that's
I don't know.
again going back to spending time. I didn't ask that question. My
Mm,
wild assumption would be you remove the cap, you remove the turret. The turret's what's free spinning and digitally tied. And I'm
yeah.
assuming there is a mechanical click inside of that to set a reticle zero. But that is a great question for sure. But
Mm.
I don't know. It's in like I look at that and have zero interest in it, but I'm sure some people are gonna love it. And going back to like companies moving in directions, I hope it does well for them. But there's places where that's going to be illegal. There's places or hunters like myself who have zero interest in it. They had another scope as well. This one did not do that, but they had another scope as well that was a smart scope, but also with a laser rangefinder on board, which I don't think I had been aware of,
Mm.
where the rifle scope itself has the laser. And so you're hitting a button on the rifle scope to laze the target. And then once you did laze that, it was showing you yardage, but it was also doing kind of the SIG BDX style where it will give you the holdover in the scope. So you don't have to adjust anything. You view your target, hit a button, it's getting a range for your target, it has your ballistic profile, and then it's showing you basically a digital aim point of, hey, put this on the center of your target, on the center of the vitals, hold here. Um, Again, way more electronics and complexity and things than I want in a rifle scope, but things are continuing to certainly move in that digital direction. It'll be interesting to see what lasts
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that was, I don't know, this was news more than something new, I guess I would say, but um, you and I both, Steve, have used the bipods for mountain gear. Matt in New Zealand designs these bipods, makes these bipods. We've had them from the beginning. We recently got what is, I think, like a Gen 3 or at least a major Generation 3 because he's constantly improving these things. This is the third one I've owned anyway. That's a different design from Matt. And when I got my hands on it, I was super excited about it. He made some great updates to it. I reached out to him and wanted to hear more about it, and he was like, "Actually, hold on a little bit because there's something in the works." And then I stayed in touch with Matt a little bit. This was a couple months ago, and then he told me that he sold the bipod to MDT, and now I think the public announcement of that really just happened at SHOT Show. So an interesting note of if you followed Mountain Gear or you've seen our bipods, those bipods are now essentially owned and sold by MDT. Matt sold not his whole company, but he sold that bipod and that design to MDT. So that yeah, it was just interesting to see there. I talked with Matt. He was at Cheap Show and SHOT Show. Actually, the first time I met him in person. Great guy. Um, he's excited to keep Mountain Gear going, and he's working on some new products. And we'll have now more time to actually develop those new products. So I hope it's a win-win for Matt, for MDT, and ultimately for you guys as the end customer. But I think they're still calling under MDT names the mountain bipod, I believe, and then the backcountry bipod, I think, are the two models. Um, but yeah, go check those out. They have, at this point, MDT has a massive profile of bipods. These new ones would be the lightest weight options at 5 to 6 ounces, and then they have a bunch of, competition bipods that weigh much more. But that was kind of interesting to see as well.
Hmm.
Um, Jeff wrote in with a more specific question for SHOT Show. He said, "I'd like to hear what you guys see and think about any new suppressors that may come out around SHOT Show." He said, "I'm leaning towards a Thunder Beast Ultra 5 or Ultra 7. And I also wonder if the new Meat Eater Banish with the adjustable brake is a gimmick or an innovation that's worth it." He says, "However, if Thunder Beast also has new products come out, or if other manufacturers come out with new suppressors that you guys see as exciting alternatives to the Thunder Beast Ultra, I would love to hear about it." Do you see any suppressors you're excited about, Steve?
No, yeah, I was looking. Um, to me, I want, after my experience with them, I don't, one that comes up, question that comes up all the time, Thunder Beast 5 versus Thunder Beast 7. You've ran the 7 um, traditionally. I think you also have a 5 now. I've been running the 5
Yep.
since the beginning. Um, if you're down at the range, absolutely, the more the merrier. In the practical application of, I'm carrying this around on my back, I'm taking it in the mountains with me, I'm hunting, there is zero difference between the two. So there's absolutely no reason to pack that extra suppressor length and weight. We're doing all these things with chassis and super short barrels and adding another couple inches to the end of your suppressor. There's zero benefit to it. The animals don't react any different. You're already suppressing the sound enough that it seems through our experience that they act confused and they hear a sound but they don't associate it necessarily like with a gunshot, so they're not just bolting immediately. So in my mind, it's like, okay, if five's good practical, like can there be a 4 inch or a 3.5 inch suppressor out there that works? Maybe again, it's not as quiet. Maybe when I'm sighting in at the range, shooting 20, 30, 40 shots, I want put hearing protection in, but the functional, I'm out there in the field, I don't need to worry about it, and it's still doing enough to suppress the shot where the animals aren't reacting. So that's what I've been looking for. Like what someone making like a little tiny midget thing, and I just haven't seen it. There's some stuff out there, but nothing that's like worth pulling the trigger on. Yeah. We stopped
Hmm.
by, I think it's JK Armament. Is that the right one? They have like a
Sounds right.
modular suppressor. Um, it's got, I mean, it had potential. It just seemed like basically it's got all these different, you can screw on as many baffles as you want. And it's just maybe the potential for that to come loose on you is something like, oh, I don't really want to deal with that on a hunt, right?
Hmm.
So, yeah, I was. Someone's gonna do something cool, just like someone's gonna come out with a truly badass backcountry hunting rifle scope. It just my super old Night Force one's still the best thing out there. I think the same's the case with the Thunder Beast 5.
Yeah, the Thunder Beast didn't have anything new since Jeff asked about it on the backcountry hunting side of things. Their core lineup was, pretty unchanged, and they had some larger stuff essentially recently, but nothing super exciting that fits our market well. Did see some other things. Actually, did Jeff mentioned the new Banish with an adjustable brake. I handled it briefly, saw it briefly. I actually ran into a Silencer Central employee while I was talking with someone else at a totally different booth, and we actually talked about it a bit. Um, he was excited about it. He said that brake definitely does help reduce recoil. It also does increase noise. So, suppressor in general obviously is going to reduce recoil, but not as effectively as a brake. And a suppressor is going to clearly reduce noise, but this brake addition is going to add some of that back in. I haven't shot it. I don't want to comment to it, but I would just say it's like probably trying, you're essentially competing for two different things at some point, right? Like further recoil reduction, managing the gas is going to increase noise. And so, which do you want more? Do you want it to be quieter? Do you want more noise reduction? This is trying to do both. What is, I guess, good about it, which I didn't fully realize when I first saw it, is that the brake, which is very low profile at the end of the suppressor, can be essentially turned on and off. So you can rotate it so that the brake ports are open and you're getting the benefits of the brake, or you can rotate it and essentially close those ports, which is going to keep that sound reduction potential to the most. They threw out numbers like in the open position, that brake is adding, and their marketing speak, an astounding 40% reduction in recoil. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. It's relatively compact for having a brake. So it is like roughly 6 inch suppressor, although it's going to weigh a bit more. I think it was just over 10 ounces. So again, seemed kind of interesting. Like it has potential, interesting theory for sure. Going back to Thunder Beast, they've added some models with brakes on the end as well. So there's definitely a trend there that, suppressors are adding brakes to them as well. For me, at the end of the day, less is more, keep it simple. I like the Thunder Beast Ultra still. These ideas of adding to it or making things incredibly modular, I just don't want that complexity. And that's where it seems like most of the new is. It's by adding things, and that's just not what I'm after. So it's definitely always changing though. There's more suppressors every year for sure.
Yeah.
Um, you know what there wasn't a lot of, Steve, was knives at SHOT Show. I don't know how many times I heard you say, "There's another freaking knife company."
Yeah, I don't. I mean, if you walk around SHOT Show, I mean, it's every other booth is a company, and they have 400 models of knives all in a glass case. And just who the hell, like, does everybody in the United States of America own 58 knives? And why? Like, you just need like, I don't, the practical side of me, like, there, there's no reason. Like, there should be like four models of knives. But they're just, yeah. Anyway, yeah, certainly became a running joke because it's
Yeah,
like, holy crap, there's a knife. I've never seen a knife company here before. I don't get it, but
yeah.
well, oddly enough, like every single company had one or two dudes just standing there, like looking at the glass case, like staring at all the different knives. Just like, um, there was so Hogue is a company. Uh, what they make all sorts of crap, but they have some pretty good looking Magna Cut knives. They're super light, lightweight sheath, great handle to them. Like that's one I definitely want to follow up on and take a look at. Um, had a pretty good looking blade to it. Um, so need to check that out some more.
Yeah, you had first brought me one of those at Sheep Show. Someone had shown it to
Hmm.
you, and then you brought
Yeah.
it over and showed it to me. And I was like, "Who makes this?" And you're like, "Hogue." And my first thought was the grip company, because when I think of Hogue, they make
Yeah.
pistol grips and all kinds of stuff, and I assumed it was a different Hogue maybe, but no, it's the same company. I was shocked to see them making a premium knife, but like you said, it was Magna Cut, pretty good design, cool sheath. And then we ended up going to their booth at SHOT Show. They also have a really cool replaceable blade knife.
Hmm.
Has some G10 handles and a good mechanism to kind of eject the blades, which has always been one of my complaints with those Havalon style knives, is just that blade management, taking them on and off when your hands are dirty, bloody, etc. And this definitely solves some of those problems. It seemed stupid expensive for a replaceable blade knife. I think it was like 125. I don't know if that's just
Hmm.
MSRP and on the street they're going to be cheaper. Um, but yeah, it was interesting to see Hogue. I mean, it looks like not only did they just come out with some knives, but they actually, I mean, they did a good job from a design perspective on designing something and having
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
materials and doing it well.
Yeah, whoever designed it did a fantastic job. That's something you would expect to see out of like a small custom knife maker, not a bigger company. Yeah.
Yeah.
The name of the
Yeah.
knife's called the X Track, Extrak. It's actually a pretty terrible name. X Track. Huh. Weird. But yeah,
Yeah.
that a 3.3 inch version and then the X Track XL, which is a 3.9 inch blade. I think that 3.3 was perfect, man.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah,
Yeah.
1.9 ounces for the knife. It's a pretty good looking knife. And that Magna Cut steel, I ran two different knives this year with that, and they were, I guess I am somebody who owns 10 different knives. Um, but
I'll
yeah,
call in the kettle.
yeah, no kidding. Um, yeah, anyways, Magna Cut, we ran it all this year, and that I was, good steel seems to be, they're all very close, but it seemed to hold its edge well, and then also probably resharpen a little bit easier. I think that also coincides with them getting better at doing that in the field. But the other, like I've used some S90 knives in the past, which are known for being really hard and holding edge for a long time, but harder to sharpen. And this stuff seems to
Mhm.
be a little bit more, yeah, just a little easier to do in the field,
Yeah.
which is, essential, as we talked about the other day. Of like, all right, if you get it really, really sharp at home, and maybe you can get through one animal, but if you're still out there in the field and other buddy's got tags, it's like you have to have that ability to sharpen in the field.
Hmm. Yeah, it was on that note, we stopped by DMT at SHOT Show.
Mm,
It's makes the field sharpener that I use. And they have essentially an updated version because I mean my sharpener's got to be, I mean it's over 10 years old for sure, well over. And their updated version of quote unquote my sharpener, I was honestly disappointed in. They changed the handles and they're bulkier, they felt cheaper, they felt more fragile, and it was, I don't know if it's one of those things that's just because I'm used to my old version, but I saw the quote unquote new one and I was like, man, this feels like a step backwards.
yeah.
Maybe it's not. Maybe that's, my just quick assumption, but I hate
Yeah,
when
I think
stuff like that happens.
the guy said something about the handle being polycarbonate or something. Like, technically, probably a stronger material, um, but it definitely, like, the execution felt like a little sloppier. But it's essentially the
Yeah.
same dang thing. Yeah.
Still fantastic. Like the sharpening aspect of it will be fantastic. So I would still buy another one when I need to and check it out. Um, Random question, Steve, as we transition from SHOT Show. I got a little chuckle out of this. Tom sent this in. He said, I remember in past episodes, Steve saying he cuts up his elk antlers, his chews for his dog. Is he going to do that with his caribou or moose antlers with his from his Alaska hunts this fall? You were I I wanted you to talk about dog chews if you want, but all along, Steve, for months I had heard you talking about leading up to this moose hunt, how excited you were about hanging this thing over your fireplace in your house, and it was gonna be the first time I've ever seen antlers in any of your homes you've owned, and you didn't do it. You backed out. I'm disappointed.
Well, yeah. Um, so we're actually building a house right now, my wife and I. It's been going on for the last year. Should be almost complete here in the next month. And yeah, I was like, okay, yeah, it's got a nice big fireplace in there. We're gonna put the moose rack above that. But then we put it in. In the meantime, we hung it up at the office, and everybody was like, "It's staying here because it's right there in the right when you open the door, and it looks really good." And I'm like, well, I can't really argue with you. It does look fantastic there. So we'll see. We'll see what happens once the house is complete and if I pull that down or not.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, no, I've absolutely killed small raghorn bulls and mule deer and stuff like that I've chopped up the antlers, and my dog has chewed on, and I just I don't know, the trophy to me is sounds cliche or corny or whatever, but it's in the memories, and the antlers sitting in a pile in the corner of the garage is just something that I just it's like whatever. Like I don't. It's just kind of taking up space. I'm definitely not. Uh, I mean, it's cool. Like it's cool when you walk into somebody's house and they've got everything they've ever killed hanging up on the garage. Like I killed that buck when I was 16 years old, and stuff like that, and tell those stories. And that does add back to the experience. But just as far as clearly, we're not like giant trophy guys or whatever. Like I'm going through trying to figure out where I want to hunt Wyoming, and talking to some industry friends, like, well, if you want to kill a 360 bull, you got to go to this unit. And, it's like the conversation came down to like two different units. And one's like, oh, the best you're going to find in here is a 340, 350 bull. But it's like more backpacking and less people. And I'm like, yeah, that's the hunt I want. Like, I don't care to kill a 380 bull if I'm like dodging private property the entire time and dealing with other hunters. And that's not going to be a fun experience. Um, so I mean, certainly that mentality carries through with everything I do in relation to antler size and, you know, cutting up raghorn bulls so my dog could chew on them and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, there's a lot we mentioned there, and I'm going to leave links to pretty much everything. So all the SHOT Show items, at least the ones that are publicly available to leave a link to, I'll leave links in the show description for that. Even Steve's Moose, I just realized we had a kind of a cool Instagram clip of hanging that. So if you want to see that hung up in the office, you can go check that out. There'll be a link to that. The Ivory Holsters, the New Experience Project film, all that stuff. So check out the links in the show description if you're interested. And also, while you're down there, will be our contact information. If you have a question for us that we could cover on a future Monday Minute episode, send us a message there or leave us an audio message on SpeakPipe. We'd love to hear from you. And then just be sure to hit subscribe or follow if you want to get future episodes of the podcast automatically. As always, we appreciate the support, and we'll talk to you soon.